Top of the morning to you, Nigeria, and welcome to What's Your Take, a down-to-earth news program in which Nigerians from all walks of life get to express their opinions on the big stories that have the potential to impact our daily lives and well-being. My name is Dayo Akintobi, and I will be taking us through those stories that made the headlines this past week. Well, as you all know, this last week was a week of queues, a week of extensions, and for the first time in a very long time that I can remember, this past week was one where the Naira was much more sought after than the dollar. Can you imagine that that would ever be our situation? That the Naira is actually of more importance to any Nigerian than the dollar. And that's essentially what we had this past week. So let's get into the program this morning. With me this morning is our newscaster, Yetunde Afolabi, who will be telling us all about the big stories we'll be discussing today. Good morning, Yetunde.
Good morning, Dayo, and a very good morning, Nigeria.
Yetunde, it was quite a topsy-turvy week for Nigerians, what with queues all over the place and politics taking center stage.
Yes, indeed, Dayo. It was very much a busy news week across all sectors of our daily lives in Nigeria.
Joining me to take a deep dive into the big stories that dominated the headlines last week is Abimbola Oyarinu. Abimbola is a lecturer in the University of Lagos Department of African Affairs. Good morning, Abimbola. Thank you for joining us on What's Your Take today.
Good morning for having me. I'm actually an affiliate researcher with the Institute of African and Diaspora Studies, University of Lagos.
Yes, I got that a bit mixed up because I knew that you do something in the University of Lagos. I had you down as a lecturer, I had you as an associate, I had you as a politics and history and all that. Yeah. But needless to say, you are a very well-versed intellectual, you're an academic, and you're also a Nigerian, which exactly. Is the major criteria for us here, is to have someone who understands the issues that are bedeviling us as a people.
I agree.
Good. Okay, Yetunde, what do you have for us this morning?
The really big story of last week happened just yesterday. And for those of us who may not yet have heard, it says that the Central Bank of Nigeria has extended the deadline for the use of old Naira notes to February 10. The move, announced by CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele in a press release shared with the media, was said to have been approved by President Muhammadu Buhari in response to complaints raised by Nigerians on the widespread lack of availability of the new Naira notes, which had given rise to long queues at the few bank ATMs that were dispensing the new notes. Over to you, Dayo.
Well, Abimbola, this is where we are. This has been the issue with Nigerians in the last week. This idea of the new Naira notes, which seem to have not been readily available for some reason which we don't understand, because the CBN has said that it produced enough notes, that there were enough to go around all the banks, that the banks were hoarding. And my take was that if CBN provided enough notes to the banks and the banks are hoarding it and not passing it on to their customers, then the CBN as regulator should be able to take the banks to task, because at the end of the day, it's the everyday Nigerian, me, you, Yetunde, and everybody else who suffered. I was in ATM queues on Friday, on Saturday for hours on end, and at the end of the day, most of the time I walked away empty-handed. What do you think has caused this divergence between supply and demand in terms of the new Naira notes, and also the extension that was finally granted yesterday? Do you think that was a good thing? Should the CBN have held its line? Nigerians being what we are, my sense is that February 9 we'll be back at this same pass again, where people will be saying, we didn't have enough time, give us more time. Is there ever enough time? Or should you just set a deadline and keep to it, knowing that we as a people, we end up getting complacent?
Yeah, well, what I think is the economy doesn't respond to some of our actions and inactions. The economy operates on principles, and if we had gone ahead with the policy, I am sure we would have grounded the economy, because the economy needs fuel to run, and we are more of a cash-based economy than a cashless economy. And seeing the impact this had in the last few weeks, I mean, queues have become part of our lives now. You can queue for hours to get fuel. Now we're queuing to even get money. It's an indication that the cashless policy has failed. It's an indication that the political decision to change the Naira impromptu has affected the economy badly. And I think we do not learn anything from history. That's why we keep repeating the same mistake. Because I tell you, we have been using economic and structural issues to settle political scores. You remember that the creation of states in Nigeria in the first place was a political decision that grounded the entire Nigerian state, that grounded the structure that the Nigerian state was built on. Now we're here again to solve a political problem. People that should be in jail, people that should, be prosecuted for flouting rules, for hoarding cash, because we do not want to directly go for them, all Nigerians must suffer. How did it get here in the first place that people now have more money at home than banks? This is an anomaly in the system. Rather than plug that, we had to, go for currency change. Yeah, it's not like the currency change itself is a bad decision, but it was not properly planned, because I am sure the idea just came up, as a way to plug the issue of
vote buying for the election.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was purely a political decision that has affected the economy badly. And as you know, politics will always respond. Politicians have contact, they have networks, and I'm sure they're using their networks in the banks to frustrate the policy.
So, but as a policy in itself, are you saying that the infrastructure is not robust enough to make this workable? I heard you say we're not ready for a cashless economy, we're a cash society, but we know that the way of the world now is moving towards cashless, is technologically centered and focused. Cash is expensive to print, to maintain, to distribute, and of course, there's a lot to be said for going cashless. So the policy in and of itself, was it wrong for this environment, or is it simply the implementation that was poor?
The policy itself is not wrong. Different countries actually do, change their currency from time to time. You see that the dollar, sometimes they manipulate it in such a way that, they tell you from so year downwards they are not taking it. It is a way to sort of regulate cash flow in the economy, because one of the reasons why I believe we have runaway inflation is because there's too much money in the economy, and it is not getting back into the banking system. So in order to curtail that, these are policies that can be put in place to manage such anomaly. But the implementation and timing, which is where we as a country, we always get it wrong, because civil servants that are supposed to be the ones to carry these things out, we employ the worst of us in our civil service, and also the banks seem to have been compromised. The discipline that the banks used to have, it's no longer there, and these are the issues.
All right, thank you. Our camera crew went out over the weekend to talk to people in the ATM queues who are queuing to get new Naira notes. Let's hear what one or two of them had to say.
Last. I see still the new money to collect in one bank around Ilupeju, TikTok Trust Bank. But after I've been in several banks, all the popular banks, I've been there, I don't see the money to collect. I see money to collect in one of the banks around Ilupeju. The bank is not popular like that, but the bank is paying for 5,000. I have to bring out my ATM card to collect money, because I can't go and suffer myself in market tomorrow to be buying something and I won't see money to buy something. So my own belief is that Mr. Emefiele or His Excellency Emefiele try to extend this deadline of these old notes and try to print more new notes out so we can see money to use to buy things. If I can still remember, they said that the youth of Nigeria, they are lazy. Now the youth of Nigeria, they are working, hustling. They didn't depend on government. You now, you are now freezing the money that the youth of Nigeria is using, that they need to use to purchase markets, to sell out, to do business. So please just help us to extend it, Mr. Buhari. That's all what I can say.
All right. So what's next on your list here today among today's stories?
Your news story for today is about another extension, this one by Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, which extended the deadline for Permanent Voter Card, PVC, collection to February 5th. Following poor turnouts recorded during the PVC collection exercise that has been running for the past few months, the INEC had extended the deadline for the collection of PVCs to February 5th to allow more voters to collect their cards and participate in the upcoming elections.
Abimbola, back to this issue of deadlines. Do you think it will make any difference, this extra 1 week or two that INEC has given those who didn't collect their PVCs up until yesterday? What are the chances that they will now go and collect it between now and February 5? Is it that people were preoccupied to the point that they couldn't go, or is it just that they were nonchalant about going? And if they were nonchalant about going, what are the chances that they will now go between now and February 5?
Well, that is difficult to say. Well, all I can say is that I'm not sure there will be a massive turnout of people going to get their PVCs. Is it the right decision to extend? Yes, I think so. But the critical issue here is the method of distribution. As a young man growing up in this part of the world, when NEPA used to distribute bills, we had a structure in place. NEPA had a structure in place to distribute bills to every household in the country. I mean, why can't we employ that to distribute PVCs? We can do that. It's a strategy that can work and ensure that a larger number of us get PVCs within a week or two, and we don't have to go through this extension and deadlines, using this method.
But these people whose PVCs are there waiting, they went through the rigor of getting registered. So if they were willing to go to the location, maybe the INEC office at their local government, sit down for queues in hours, get fingerprinted, get photographed, fill out all their information, if they could go to that extent to register, it's the same amount of effort to collect the card. So perhaps it's not a distribution issue as you think. Could it be that people are disgruntled or dissatisfied or uninspired by the candidates and the options they have for the upcoming election to where they are no longer interested?
I think that this election is going to actually attract a number of new voters. A lot of people who have never voted in the past will vote in this election. And I think that it is because of the presence of options. Before we used to be saddled with the devil and the deep blue sea from the two big parties, and there seem to be a number of options across board. And a lot of people have generated interest as a result of that. And that makes our election a lot more robust, which is a good thing. But I think the exodus to get PVC, we've seen the best of it. I don't think there will be any massive turnout to get PVCs anymore. But a lot of people will still have the opportunity to actually get their PVCs, because some people did not get their PVCs because they were not interested in getting it. It is because of the rigor, in the process of actually getting the PVCs in the first place. When I went to get mine, I spent hours. So some people do not have the time. And for some, they think it's a worthless exercise to spend all the hours, to get it. But I'm sure with reduced queues at the PVC points, a lot of people will actually go out to get it.
Okay, so the way you look at it simply is that if the distribution process is simplified, a lot more people will pick these cards up. So maybe it's a piece of advice to INEC.
The entire process actually can be made simpler. You see, from the registration point to PVC, you know, the process of registering your PVC, they've made that easy because you can be in the comfort of your home and just do the registration. You saw that a lot of people registered. Collection of PVC can equally be simplified. Then the elections, I don't know if we still have to register and go back home and come back to vote, but I think that has been corrected. You see, all of these things tend to disenfranchise a lot of Nigerians, and that in itself is anti-democracy.
Yes, okay. We'll see how it goes between now and February 5, and hoping that a whole lot more people will pick up their PVCs to give themselves an opportunity to participate in the upcoming elections. Yetne, what do you have for us next?
Our next news item for today is the declaration of the Oyo State Governorship Election Tribunal that immediate past Governor Boyega Oyetola of the APC won the election. In a 2-to-1 split decision, the tribunal found that overvoting occurred in 744 wards across the state. After deducting that the votes illegally cast, Oyetola was found to have scored the majority of lawful votes of 314,931 against Adeleke's 290,266. The tribunal that instructed INEC to withdraw the certificates of return issued to PDP's Ademola Adeleke and presented to Oyetola.
Abimbola, this has BVAS written all over it. Did BVAS fail, or did BVAS actually help to expose this discrepancy? Because you know, BVAS has been, this notion of using technology for the election is what has inspired a lot of confidence in people about the prospects of a free and fair election in Nigeria for the first time. That we'll have a very clean election. And a lot of that confidence revolves or pivots around the notion of this BVAS, that the BVAS will ensure that any voter who presents himself is who he says he is, and it will accredit the fact that the PVC he is presenting is his PVC. So number one, it eliminates the fact that somebody else can vote for you. It's supposed to eliminate the fact that you can vote multiple times. It's supposed to eliminate the fact that you can vote without being accredited. So what now happened? How did overvoting occur? And don't get me wrong, it occurred on both sides. The only thing about this decision is that Adeleke's group or his supporters were found to have overvoted more. Oyetola's people overvoted as well, but theirs was less. So by the time they recalculated the numbers, Oyetola now has more votes than Adeleke. So does this mean BVAS failed? Or was it BVAS that helped to actually highlight the discrepancy? Are we in trouble with the upcoming election?
You see, there is no perfect system. BVAS is a new technology that we are trying to understand in this part of the world. Australian elections, I have presented a lesson for INEC, and I'm sure they are working on how to plug some of the discrepancies noticed in the Australian election. However, it's unfortunate that the judiciary has come again to actually decide the fate of our democracy. It is very unfortunate that we have to get to the point where people's votes are not what decides who become what. It is the judiciary's injunction that, you know, eventually picks the governors of different states and sometimes even decide our political leaders.
But isn't the judiciary doing us a favor to ensure that it's who we actually voted for that's going there? Isn't that what the judiciary's job is to do, is to ensure that the truth prevails?
Well, let me talk like the common man on the street, and I would say, are we sure that there's justice in the judiciary? Yeah, these are issues. When the judiciary starts to decide who gets what and how, it is an affront on democracy itself. It is the people that should decide, and when they vote in an election, you see, how did we get here in the first place? You recognize that there was vote buying, vote manipulation from both sides. I mean, you give it to the next man who has no discrepancies, because what we're simply doing is we're rewarding crime. Now, crime did not favor the losing party. They went to court to say, oh, there was actually a crime and we didn't commit much of the crime. And so what we are saying here is, we are simply rewarding bad habits, basically.
Well, my take from where I sit, why don't we beef up our electoral systems in such a way that the ultimate result is above board and is incapable of being compromised or questioned to the point that the judiciary has no role to play? In many of the advanced democracies that have been in existence for many, many years, the result that's announced is usually above any kind of question or any kind of reversal. And ultimately, that's what I think we should look at, is how do we get INEC and the electoral process to beef up the systems in such a way that it will be clear who won. It will be above question.
We're already getting there. Technology is the way to go.
Yes.
And we're beginning to deploy technology to actually help us conduct our elections better. I am sure one of the reasons why it was easy for the tribunal to actually say, oh, this was what happened, was because of technology.
Yes.
And by the time politicians understand that it is no longer business as usual,
yes,
they would, pay more attention,
yes,
to winning legal votes than for duplication of votes and vote buying and all of that.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. All right, Yetunde, what's your final story that you have for us today?
And our final big story for today is a really sad one that occurred yesterday, in which a container truck fell on a commercial bus at Oyo State Bridge in Lagos, leaving 9 dead and 1 rescued alive. The bus was said to be picking up passengers along the service lane beneath the bridge when the truck lost control and fell off the side of the bridge, where it landed on top of the bus, crushing it. Emergency crews were able to lift the container parts of the truck with a forklift, after which they cut off the top of the bud to access trapped passengers. A single adult female was evacuated alive, while 9 bodies were recovered, comprising 4 adult males, 3 adult females, 1 boy child, and 1 girl child. And that's all the stories we have for you on this edition of What's Your Take? I will now hand back to Dio, who will discuss this tragedy with our guest.
Oyo State Bridge again? It seems as if every other month something's falling off Oyo State Bridge. Is that bridge jinxed, or is it simply a technological anomaly, or what is the issue with Oyo State Bridge? I remember that back in a couple of administrations in Lagos State previously, they put a barrier across that Oyo State Bridge to stop vehicles of certain heights from ascending that bridge, because for some reason, maybe the way it curves, it seems to be susceptible to heavy vehicles falling over the side. So there was a time when they actually put a barrier so that vehicles taller than 7 feet couldn't pass. So all the trucks had to go through the bottom. But that seems to have disappeared, and now we're back to facing this unconscionable situation where innocent human lives are sacrificed as if they're worth no more than a chicken's life. This that happened yesterday, or on Sunday, I'm sorry, simply is just too painful to bear. And I can imagine the pain of the families who lost those 9 people. We're thankful for the 1 person who survived, but we are pained by the 9 people we lost, because it's a needless death. My question now is, the owner of the truck, the driver of the truck, what are their legal liabilities? What are their culpabilities? Are we going to see criminal prosecution? Vehicles, was the vehicle roadworthy? When I went to renew my roadworthiness license the other day, I didn't see 1 commercial vehicle there. And those are the ones whose roadworthiness we need to check. But we are having private vehicles, putting them through stress, but we're allowing commercial vehicles to skate. Was that vehicle roadworthy? Did it have good brakes? Did the tires still have tread? These are the questions, hard questions we need to ask, and I think we need to begin to hold people to account for homicide, because these are avoidable deaths. So somebody needs to pay a price. These deaths should not just go in vain. That's my take.
Our problem is holistic. It starts from the way we view life, the value we place on it. This is a country where, when accidents happen, we see it as that accidents. But accidents don't just happen. Things don't happen because they must happen. Things don't happen because your village people said, oh, it's your time. I mean, you don't see these kind of things in the developed world. Is it that they don't have village people there? These are the issues that we should start to ask ourselves. By the time we start to hold people responsible for avoidable deaths like this, we would not see a change. But the government itself is culpable. That's why I'm sure they cannot take legal action against truck drivers who kill people with reckless abandon. What is the challenge of the government here? This particular point has always been a problem. You know, times without numbers, trucks have fallen, you know, at that particular spot. And the point is there's an engineering problem over there. There are two key spots in Lagos where you have these issues.
Yeah, Otedola
and
Ojuelegba Bridge, yes.
So are we saying that the governor of Lagos, former governor of Lagos, Ambode, wanted to actually bring down that bridge because of things like this? You understand? And we have not looked at why these things are happening. This is the only country where we do not set up inquiries when the common man is involved. But if it's the politicians, they create committees and all that. But we need to set up an inquiry to look at why trucks fall on that place. What is the engineering problem? Then we now consider if, because the Speaker of the House of Rep actually said, because this is his constituency, he said that the trucks should not be allowed to pass the bridge. They should pass underneath the bridge. That is going to come with some traffic challenges too. And you see that the people will quickly forget the 9 people who have died, because, I mean, we don't place value on life here, and would say, oh, let them pass the bridge. But there is something that we can do to actually curb that in engineering-wise, and that is to relay that place. The vibration that these cars, you know, experience passing that place actually cause it to tumble. So we have sound engineers in this country that can look at that bridge and see what they can do to fix the problem.
Yes, and we hope they do take that seriously. You mentioned that the former governor perhaps had thought about bringing down the bridge, but there might be that jurisdictional issue about, oh, it's a federal road. Does a state governor have the authority to bring down a bridge on a federal road? Which goes to the notion of restructuring that the whole country is talking about. In terms of state power versus federal power, who has jurisdiction, who has authority. And that's where we must end it on this edition of What's Your Take. We thank all of you, our viewers, our newscaster here today, our in-studio guest, Abimbola Oyarinu, our producers, and most of all of you Nigerians. We also ask that you like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen, or go to our website to find out more. I am Dayo Akintobi, and thank you for watching today.